All right, and we're back.
Hello.
So, I'm Emil Rodriguez. This is the esteemed Colin Johanson. We're going to wait for a second to see if we have sound this time. And it's looking like I'm not getting any complaints, so I guess we do.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Can you hear us? Hear us? Hear us? So, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So, we're really excited. We're getting ready to launch the game tonight. For those of you who pre-purchased, which I hope is all of you. And so we're going to kind of pass some of the time by talking about the game. We have some devs who have made some free time in their schedule getting ready for launch to kind of sit and chat about the game and chat about what they've worked on and what they're excited about. And so we're going to start with Colin here. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about the game is that I can actually just really easily play with my friends, and so I wanted to ask Colin kind of why we went about doing that and what was the goal there. So we'll kind of start with that. What was the design goal, and from kind of, or what was the goal? Yeah, with making this such a social game, and what we really aiming for?
Yeah. I mean, it's something with Guild Wars 2 where from the very start, it's one of the core pieces of what makes this game what it is that focus on how do we get people playing in this giant open world playing together.
Right.
Everybody in traditional MMOs, you're playing next to other people unless you're in a group with them, and oftentimes you're conflicting with them or fighting over resources.
Right.
And we really changed a lot of the design philosophies behind the game to get people playing together, events instead of quests. Shared gathering nodes, shared kills, shared experience. And the reason for that is, when you play an online game and when you play a game that is inherently social, which an MMO should be, you want to play that game with other people, right? That's the whole reason you're playing this game online. And so we had to ask ourselves at every step of the way, what decisions can we make as game designers that make this a game that you can more easily play with someone else? At level 1, you can jump to any other starter city and play with your buddy no matter what race they are. Whatever level you are, you can get down-leveled down to the level of another part of the game, so you can play with your friends when they make new characters. You don't have to make a new character to go play with somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote a giant list on the wall of all the things that made it less accessible to play our game with other people. And we crossed them off one at a time when we came up with ideas to make it easier to play with other people to replace that stuff. And I think that's really kind of what social gaming is all about, right? When you're playing Words with friends, it's like you've got your phone open, you're ready to go, and wherever you are, you take your turn, you shoot it over, and whenever your buddy's got time, they play and they shoot it back. And it's always accessible. It becomes social. I have a lot of friends who use Words with Friends as their way to get in touch with and stay closer to family members.
Right.
A buddy of mine plays with his sister all the time. They're constantly going back and forth. And he said it's the most interaction that he's had with her in years is because they play this game together constantly. And it helps keep them together. I think Guild Wars 2, hopefully, with the social tools that we've engineered with this game, there's that capacity for you to create bonds with people and play with them easier and make new friends easier because this game is such a social game as opposed to find a small group of friends and these are the people that I game with. It's really, it opens it up to everybody.
Is that kind of the hope? Is that, I mean, you brought up social games and everything, and that term can be kind of charged. People think of social games, they think of like really spammy Facebook games and everything, but is that the hope, is that you can take the good aspects of that sort of gameplay where you can see people maybe just hopping on a Guild Wars just to kind of, chat with their friends and catch up, and that's how they interact and do a couple things together, and that's the experience they have? Is that still considered success for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even if you look at Guild Wars 1 as a model of where that's happening, right now in-game, there are people who for the last couple years, they've barely played the actual game, but they keep logging in and hanging out in towns and talking to each other and interacting. And we saw that and we thought, this is actually the element of our game that is really the appealing part. You can go do anything you want, in any game, right? But when you can go do the things that you want to do with a group of friends and you build that bond, those are the games that you stick with. Those are the games that you grow. It's one of the reasons why there are certain MMOs that are the most successful ones and stay successful for a really long time, is when you build that core group or community inside a game, it's really hard to get those people away from that game. A few people in your guild might go try a different game, like, this is a really fun game, but the rest of your guild's like, nah, I don't want to leave. This is where our community is.
Right.
And one of the challenges of being a successful MMO is you can't just win over a few people. You have to win over an entire community. And to do that, you have to provide all the tools that it would take to keep that community close and to bridge them together. And I think it's really interesting that you're going to see that more with social games going forward, too. I think Facebook games and online sort of fun games, you're going to start seeing more and more elements that are there to build community between players.
Right.
I think if you look at games like Farmville, there are certain aspects that they did that are really interesting. I think at the end of the day, users now are starting to see those more transparently than they did in the past, as they understand that there are certain things psychologically in those games that are specifically built to get you in every day and build that sense of like, I have to come back, I have to do this. And then you try to hook your friends into it as well because the game rewards you for doing that. And I think you're going to start seeing, especially as you see like Zynga is starting to fall off as a company a little bit, right? They're not doing as well as they were. The people playing those games are now looking for higher production quality. They're looking for
a more immersive, like a more fulfilling experience than just spamming.
Yeah, fulfilling actually I think is a great way to describe it. They're looking for something that's more good job. They're looking for that bond, with their game, that they feel like this game is giving back to me as much as I'm putting into it. And I think a lot of social games and that first big wave that got people into them, that wasn't true. And you're starting to see more and more of that now from the social games. And you're starting to see games like ours that historically haven't really focused on that. Guild Wars 2 really does, and it takes some of those elements of social games, the good parts of them, and it tries to push more towards that. And so I think you're seeing these two sort of disparate genres that are starting to more and more meld together as online gaming and social gaming are kind of becoming synonymous with one another.
It's like the whole concept. A gamer is not just like a person who is playing console games, the top, most difficult console games all the time. It's gamer as a term has really evolved, and so it's kind of interesting to see like the genre in games like ours hopefully doing the same thing.
Yeah, it really has. It's interesting to see how many people have gone from playing Facebook games and phone games, and they're using that to become comfortable with games that are more advanced. Our generation had Mario, right? We used that to get, and we were like, oh, we're building on this, and we grew into becoming fans of these larger, more complex games. For this next generation that's getting into games now, and it's much larger than any group that we've ever seen before. It really is. These more simple phone games are starting to become more complicated, which allows them to transfer into games like ours.
Yeah, that's very good. So I guess along that kind of that social standpoint, do you have any kind of favorite memories or examples of like when you saw Guild Wars 2 succeed on that front?
I do actually. This comes from last night. I was reading through the forums from our core test group. So for the last, for quite a while now, we've had this core group of testers that has been helping us internally test the game. And they're bound by NDA, and they aren't allowed to talk about who they are or what they've seen. But, there's a big Goodbye ArenaNet thread on there, and it's all these people saying thank you for this experience, and thank you for the game, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. And I'm reading through this forum last night, and I could not believe the messages that I saw in there and the stuff that people are saying. And, people talking about how this game helped them get through horrible times in their life. There were a few people in there who talked about large parts of their family, had passed away or gotten very sick over the period of times that we've been developing the game. And how literally the community that the Guild Wars 2 closed core test had built had helped them pass through that. People who socially were having problems. And this community helped them build friends and build confidence to get out and become, more comfortable in the world. And it's moments like that I realize that this game has a larger impact than just making a game. And I think the decisions that we've made that help build a community between the players have helped build a bond between all those people who are in that core test. And I think this core test is just a small, it's a small sample size of what the greater game will be like. And it really is just a mix of all sorts of people. There were hardcore PvP people, hardcore world versus world fans, and hardcore PvE people in this test. And traditionally in the past, and we saw this in Guild Wars 1, even in our alpha or in closed tests in Guild Wars 1, those groups didn't always get along. And oftentimes they were very disparate communities within our closed test. And the bond they had with the developers was good, but it wasn't, fantastic. And it's really interesting reading through this forum thread of all these core testers saying, this is the best closed test I've ever seen, period. The best I've ever been a part of. And it's because the community that got built within it is so strong. And I think that comes from two places. I think one of those comes from the efforts that our folks on, that running that core tested, Evan and Tim, and their whole team here at ArenaNet did a great job of putting that all together. But I think the second place that comes from is the game itself builds these communities, and it reinforces that message of getting people together, and the dynamic event system gets them together. And it's amazing to see how many of them had so many positive things to say coming out of this experience. And I think the decisions that we made with the game create a lot of that and made that bond.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really cool.
I've seen a ton of that stuff on Reddit. There's an awesome thread on Reddit right now on the Guild Wars 2 subreddit of people like saying, farewells has been awesome. Can't wait to actually see you all in the game and kind of start this whole process over again. And it's really cool to see that sort of thing come together. So
yeah, it's amazing. Usually at this time in a game's release, there's a large amount of positivity and there's a huge amount of negativity that's offsetting that from skeptics and people who are giving it a hard time. And it's amazing to us as developers to see how little of the negative there is, and just how much positive and overwhelming enthusiasm there is for the game. And how many people who have said that they can feel the enthusiasm that we have as developers towards it. I think it's really cool that that's come across. Because literally all around the office today, everybody's going around and they're high-fiving each other and hugging each other, and they're talking about what are we going to do next? What's the next thing we're going to do? And it's not, yeah, we're done. We don't have to do anything ever again. It's like, let's make something more. What can we do to push this game further?
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that makes this studio and this game so special, is there is just a ridiculous amount of love in all these halls for the things that we've done.
Yeah. All right, so the last question here, the most important one.
Yep.
What race and profession playing?
I will be an Asura engineer right off the bat,
Nice.
followed quickly by a Char necromancer, human warrior, human ranger,
And
Sylvari. Man, I can't remember what my Sylvari was. I have a list on my desk of my first 8 characters.
Mine has a spreadsheet. I had a spreadsheet like that. Yeah.
What are you doing first?
So, well, first, probably at the same time, I'll have Asura Mesmer, and then Char Thief,
Nice.
Ash Legion, because they have the best story so far,
Nice.
in my humble opinion. So,
I love the Asura stories. The one with the golem love.
yeah,
Where, yeah,
the one gets trapped inside.
Oh man, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
It chokes me up a little bit every
A little
time.
bit.
No spoilers. I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
any more than that, but it's good.
50 Shades of Golem or something. No,
Yeah.
it's too much. All right. So, anyways, we're ready to move on to next folks a little bit. So stay tuned, and thanks for joining us. And we'll see you in game very soon.
Well, see you soon, everybody. Thank you so much for following the game. We really, really appreciate it. We can't wait to see what you think of it tonight when you get a chance to unleash and run loose in every direction.
All right. Have fun, all.